What's going on, everyone? Kaz with Elevate Your Craft, back for another episode of Journey of a Magic the Gathering Beginner. And I think, geez, I don't even know what episode this is. I think it's 5 or 6, but definitely going to be an episode because I learned a lot and I want to share some stuff with you. And starting off a little bit differently here, we have MTGO, Magic the Gathering Online, open here. And it's not a platform I use really at all. Well, technically I am using it right now, but to be more specific, it's not one that I actually play with. Arena is what I play with. Magic the Gathering Online is something I would like to play with, but not willing to invest the funds into it. When I do play a lot of tabletop, and I also have Arena to fulfill my online Magic desires. So for now, I'm just using it to display a deck here, and that is the same deck that I have in my hands, and that is Bring to Light Scapeshift or Teamer Scapeshift. And I was going to talk about it, and I was at a Modern League last night, and I thought, man, it'd be great to be able to just display the cards so you guys can actually see the deck instead of me sort of just talking over Arena about Modern, and that's not really relevant to Arena. So I thought this would be a good idea. This is one thing I actually like about MTGO, is that it allows you to actually set up a deck without owning all of the cards. So just to get a glimpse of it. But there is the deck. Right here. So this is what I played last night at a Modern League and ended up going 3-1, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's my best record thus far in Modern. This format has been a little stressful, in all honesty, in learning all the matchups and learning how to play this deck. I mean, I still feel like I'm not doing this deck justice in what it's capable of, but I'm definitely getting better. And so I wanted to talk a bit about that experience and about the deck and a few different things, and also how I'm getting better with the deck. But first, I'll just kind of mention the matchups that I played. So I've got my notes here, if you'll bear with me. There were 4 matches. First one was against Blue-White Control. The second was Grishelbrand. The third was Eldrazi Tron. And the fourth was Amulet Titan, which I was really happy to play against. I've seen that deck in action through online video, and I think it just looks so cool. I would love to build that deck one day, and I was just really excited to play it, win or lose. I was very excited to play against it. So what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about each matchup and what I experienced, what I learned from it, how it went. And I'll keep it fairly brief. I don't want to drag on here. But with the Blue-White Control deck, I mean, this deck has control elements to it. I think essentially what we're trying to do is just control the board until we can resolve Scapeshift, whether it's through playing Scapeshift itself or through Bring to Light. With this one, I ended up going, I believe I was on the draw first game, I was on the play second, and then I was on the draw for the third game. Now let me see, just want to make sure that's correct. I remember losing the die roll, and I lost the first game. So I went on the play. Yes, no, that's correct. It was draw, play, draw. And that's important because that's an element that I'm learning more about and understanding the importance of that as time goes on. So it, again, was Blue-White Control, and there's Teferi and Jace. The 2 big cats that I did have to deal with. As you can see, I do have Jace myself in this deck, not Teferi, of course, because we're not playing any white. However, I figure in this matchup, I just have to play the control game a little bit better, try not to let Planeswalkers resolve like Jace, like Teferi. The first game went pretty brutally. I mulliganed to 6, and then just did not have a land base that was ideal. It ended up being more mountains and forests, which, thinking back, it led my opponent to believe that I was playing Titan Shift. But it was also a conscious decision to concede at a point where I wasn't revealing more information. So I think it was a hand that I should have mulliganed down to 5. I'm still learning that lesson, and it's a hard one to learn, I'll tell you. So yeah, I conceded that one pretty early. That way we can move on. I take the play, and I didn't really give my opponent that much information. So really in this matchup, I knew that I needed to tax their mana, their life total, or their cards, or a combination of them in order to win. So those are the things that I want to tax and then come out ahead. Some of the key sideboard cards that I brought in were Negate, Dispel, Clique, and Slaughter Games, which didn't feel great. I mean, I ended up using Slaughter Games to exile Teferis, but there's only 2 in the deck. So, I mean, Teferi came out game 1, and it did great work like Teferi does. But I just think it's partly that I don't know how to use Slaughter Games as effectively as I perhaps should. So that's a product of really not knowing all the deck matchups and the impact of the cards within those decks. But I did manage to pick up a game 2, and it wasn't too grindy. I believe my opponent just kind of got land stuck and that kind of thing. And I resolved Jace first on the play, which was great. And it just gave me the advantage that I needed to win a key counter war, and then I was able to resolve Scapeshift. And then game 3, I was on the draw. He boarded in Surgical Extraction and more counter spells like Dispel and I believe a Negate, which is expected. For me, I mentioned Negate, Dispel, and Vendilion Clique, as you can see here. So I had 2 Dispel, 2 Negate, and a Vendilion Clique, which I brought in, and that was it. I believe I left out the Slaughter Games. I put the Slaughter Games back into my sideboard after game 2. But one other thing that I had to deal a lot with on my opponent's side is Field of Ruin. So I know there was at least 2, but I believe there was maybe 3 or even 4 in the deck. So that was tough to navigate. I just don't think they knew how many basics I was playing, so wanted to try and take advantage of that and get rid of my non-basic lands. But as you can see, there's 1 swamp, 2 forests, 2 mountains, and then 3 islands. So I did have basics that I found and put in place of those non-basic lands. But the land destruction part of it did make it a little tougher to navigate. So those are the things that I had to deal with. I essentially after game 1, I took out the Fatal Push. Really weren't going to do anything. I took out the Anger of the Gods, and that's about it. So overall, it went well. The third game, it came down to a key counter war where I was able to dispel my opponent's final counter attempt, and then they just didn't have what they needed. So I was able to resolve Bring to Light. I always kind of worry in the control matchups about Bring to Light because you are vulnerable to them letting Bring to Light resolve, but then when you go to cast the sorcery, or creature, or instant that you've used Bring to Light to sort of tutor, you are still casting it, so they can counter that, and then it's like a 2-for-1. So I always do worry about that when I'm facing control, but overall it was a really fun game. Control matchups for me in particular are a little more intimidating, just because, I don't know, you kind of think of the possibilities. Oh, is this going to get countered? What do I counter? What do I maybe cast that I would rather him or her counter. So it's about resource management and what I mentioned earlier, the taxing mana cards or life total. So it's a cool juggling act that I'm really coming to like a lot. And yeah, Remand too was an all-star. Remand helped a lot. I kept them in. I think generally it seems Remand is better on the play. But of course, on the draw here, I kept them in. And they did a ton of work in preserving my scape shifts. There were at least a couple of occasions where, I'd cast scape shift, and then they would cast a counter spell, and then I would respond with Remand and target my own scape shift. That way, scape shift comes back in my hand, I draw a card, and then they lose their counter spell. So it was an all-star in this matchup. Really happy with the card, and they even commented at the end of the game that the Remands made it a lot harder for them to manage their resources. So I think that's really it for that matchup. It was nice to win, the first game. It always feels good. But this second game that I encountered was rough. So it was a Griselbrand deck that I had never seen before, had no clue what I was getting into, and I lost in, I'd say, less than 10 minutes. Like, it was just, it ended up going, I was on the draw, I lost the die roll, then game 2 I was on the play, and then there was no game 3. I lost in 2. And the second game I actually lost. I had a counter spell in my hand, turn 2, and my opponent could have won at my turn 2 end step if I didn't have that counter. But turn 3, they had another card or another copy of the card that I countered, and then ended up just winning on turn 3. Not really sure what to say. I mean, I was completely unprepared for it. I didn't really have anything. At least I don't think. I mean, I boarded in the counter spells. I boarded in the slaughter games because I was kind of guessing, if I could get rid of Goryo's Vengeance or something. It seemed like there were a few key cards anyway. Maybe I could win, but I mean, this 4 mana, I had 1 counter spell in my opening hand. I think I mulliganed down to 5. So overall, it was just kind of one of those games where I was glad for it to be over. So not much to say, but it seems like one of those decks that's extremely linear. I mean, this deck is linear as well to a degree, but does have different lines that you can take, and whereas this seems like it wouldn't be that consistent and can lose to itself, or even just a turn 1 Thoughtseize or Inquisition or something like that. So that one went quick, and I was happy to have it over with. The third matchup was a lot of fun. That was Eldrazi Tron. So at that point, I was 1-1, and this ended up being 3 games. I was on the draw the first one, on the play second, and then on the draw the third. This felt like a tougher matchup than, say, a mono green Tron, just because the Eldrazi Tron has smaller creatures, Matter Reshaper, Thought-Knot Seer. I believe there was even a Ballista to contend with. But I wasn't too worried about that. It was more just the Thought-Knot Seer and the Matter Reshaper. The first game, I lost pretty decisively. It was similar to the first game, where I kept a subpar hand. That feels bad when you think about it. I kept a subpar hand, and then just wasn't drawing land, and it was very similar to the first game where I just scooped early. I said, you know what, I'm not going to give you any more information than I have to. So I conceded and moved on to game 2. And there are some pretty good sideboard cards against that matchup. So I brought in the Crumble to Dust, the negates for, Karn, and the Dispels. I was thinking to Dispel, is there Ancient Stirrings, that kind of thing. So I'm just trying to think the second game. This one didn't end up going great early on for my opponent. They weren't able to find Tron. They weren't able to assemble it. But then I managed to resolve Jace and just Fate Sealed, preventing them from drawing the land that they needed. So, I would leave Ulamog or something on top, or anything just to keep them off Tron, or, a map or something like that would allow them to just enable Tron and start dropping some big creatures. So they ended up land stuck, and I hit 13 loyalty on Jace, and at that point, I had the win with Scape Shift or Jace. So on their turn, they just conceded. So the third game, I was on the draw once again, and this one ended up being a very, very frustrating game for my opponent. And it's interesting to see people's reactions when they maybe don't get favorable draws, if we put it that way. So they once again, lands really weren't cooperating with them. I think the second game, they kept a hand that they probably shouldn't have, and it affected them. Whereas the third game, I think they had a pretty decent opening hand, but just could not draw lands for the life of them. While I pretty much had everything I need. I had some ramp. I was able to hit Crumble to Dust. I believe I used Bring to Light. Actually, no, I did have Crumble to Dust in my opening hand. I remember that. So I was able to Crumble to Dust their Urza's Tower, which made it worse for them. And by that point, they didn't draw the land that they needed, and I was able to just resolve Scape Shift without any problems. Key sideboard cards here were Negate, Crumble to Dust, and Cleek. If I was able to just flash in Vanillion Cleek on their draw step and maybe take something important out of their hand. Really, I was just hoping to avoid Thought-Knot Seer. I think that was their plan as well, just to try and get the important cards out of my hand so I can't really get to Bring to Light or Scape Shift, or prevent them from really getting their strategy out. But I was able to do it, and I gotta say, after that first game, I was pretty down, but that's okay. I mean, that's how the game goes. You never know. You might think your draws are bad or your hands are bad, but the same thing can happen to your opponent. So that was a fun game for me. Like I said, a little bit frustrating, I guess, for my opponent, but a matchup that I like to play. And the Eldrazi Tron seems like an interesting one. Whether it's better than Mono Green, I don't know. However, it is different, and local meta matters. If the decks around you are playing differently than the meta, say as a whole, maybe a deck that would be considered not that great can be somewhat successful. So that was the third match. I'm just trying to see if there was anything else. Jace did a lot of work. It was really cool to be able to Fate Seal my opponent, and closer to the end there, I brought Jace up to 13 loyalty. I'm pretty sure it was. And then next turn I would have ultimated him. So that felt kind of cool to be able to get him to that high in loyalty. But anyway, the final matchup was Amulet Titan, and I was really pumped to play this. Like I said earlier, win or lose, I've seen it played online and just watching in feature matches and stuff like that, and it looks so cool. Looks pretty difficult to play, to master. And those kinds of things always intrigue me. I like difficult strategies and tend to choose, at least within gaming and that kind of thing, always, or most of the time, I should say, chose more difficult characters to play, or, but if you're able to master them, generally they have a very high reward. So anyway, I went up against Amulet Titan, and I ended up on the play, and then on the draw. Now, yeah, I remember winning the roll. I lost the first game, so then was on the play. I won the second game. Yeah, then my opponent took the play the third game. I didn't really know what I was getting into, in all honesty. There's so many different things that Amulet Titan is doing, and from the limited amount of times I have watched it, there's no way I can understand it and know what's going on without actually playing it myself. So if I'm completely honest, I had no expectations. I had no clue what I was getting into, and really when it came to the sideboard, I figure, okay, I'll do Dispel, Negate, Vendilion, Clique, and then Shatterstorm for the amulets. I brought in Crumble to Dust, which didn't feel great, and honestly didn't feel that great throughout that whole league. I guess except in the Tron matchup where I was able to take out their tower, but I don't think Crumble to Dust was a good board. And looking at the Amulet Titan list now, in retrospect, it wasn't a great sideboard option. But, live and learn. So lost the first game, and even that one, I think it went better for me than the first three matches as far as the first game went. But I think my opponent was able to hit everything they needed, and rather quickly too. I remember they had 3 amulets on the field, the lands, they hit Primeval Titan, and then just bashed me for 24, and it was just like, okay, fair enough. And he was gracious enough to kind of explain exactly what was going on, and I was asking questions as well, and I think that's something that we, as newer players, I don't think that we should be embarrassed to do. I think it's a right to do that, to just say, hey, what's going on. Going back to that Griselbrand match, my opponent was just flying through all the interaction. I had no idea if there were any rules being broken or whatnot. It was just sort of, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, throwing cards around, and I just said at the end of the match, I'm like, listen, I have no clue what's going on here. I understand that I've probably lost, but next game, can you just take it a bit slower and tell me what's going on? Show me the interaction. And so they were kind enough to do so, and I think that is something that we should ask, because otherwise I don't think you'll really understand what's going on. So anyway, that's what I think. Keep that in mind. The second match, so like I said, I boarded in the Dispels, the Negates, Vendilion Clique, and Shatterstorm, and the Crumble to Dust. Slaughter games I brought in as well, but I never really hit it. So I was on the play. What did I take out? I took out the Search for Ascantas. The Anger of the Gods, if I remember correctly, I boarded that out. The Damnation I left in. The Fatal Pushes, I believe I'm trying to think if I took them all out, because it's like there's a Souza and the Sakura Tribe Scout, I believe it's called. So they're creatures that you can, potentially take out with Fatal Push. But I was like, I think maybe countering the Primeval Titan might have been something I'm more, I guess inclined to do, or it might be more important. So if I remember correctly, I just boarded out all the Fatal Push. And I thought, okay, I'll keep the Damnation. I have the Maelstrom Pulse. And then ended up winning the second game, and that went pretty well. Yeah, and I learned the hard way that he boarded in Spell Snare, but I was able to make a key counter on the Primeval Titan with a Cryptic Command, and I remember using Damnation to get rid of Azusa and the Tribe Scout, just slowing them down. And I did crumble to dust their Cavern of Souls, and they named Ogre on the Cavern of Souls, but I had no clue what that was referring to. And I've forgotten the name of the Ogre that was brought in, but I know that if your opponent casts a non-creature spell, it does 6 damage to you. Had no idea that was coming. But yeah, so that key counter, getting rid of the creatures, slowing them down. As I mentioned, I did try the land destruction, but it didn't feel that great. And I asked my opponent after we were finished if it was a good board, and they said not really. You know, it's not something that I should be too concerned about. So I won game 2, on to game 3, and I was on the draw this time. So I'm trying to think, I boarded out the Crumble to Dust? But other than that, I left it the same. I didn't hit my slaughter games at all throughout the matches. And it came down to, my opponent only got 1 amulet out. They seem to be somewhat land stuck as well. And there was a key mistake that I made in this game. It ended up working out for me, but it was one of those things where if you're really not paying attention, it could lose you the game. And what it ended up being was I had a Dispel in hand, and the turn after, I had the game if I did make it to my turn. But I knew that they had a Summoner's Pact, and I figured that they had a Spell Snare as well. So I did make it back to my turn, and I cast Escape Shift, and they countered it with a Spell Snare. Now, on their turn, if I remember correctly, I'd played Cryptic. Let me see. And I untapped. I countered one of their spells with a Cryptic Command. That left me with 3 mana open. Then, that can't be right. Something's up here. I can't quite recount it accurately. But anyway, I had 3 mana open, and they countered my Escape Shift with a Spell Snare. And it was very quick. And they'll just say, I'm going to Spell Snare, and then put it in their graveyard. And I kind of automatically countered it with a Dispel when I had 2 mana to actually pay instead of showing them my Dispel. So that was a mistake. I should have just paid the mana. I would have had 1 mana open still for my Dispel. But luckily, my opponent didn't have anything else. The Dispel countered their Spell Snare, and my Escape Shift resolved. Escape Shift resolved, and I ended up winning the game that way. But that was something that really stuck with me after that. And it's a product of just not knowing the card that well. I didn't have a lot of experience playing against Spell Snare, but that's how important it is to know what the cards do. And opponents might do things very quickly, or try not to show you the card, or announce something with authority and speed, just hoping that you don't recognize or understand the conditions around that card, and then make a mistake, and see it and just think, that's it, and scoop quickly, things like that. So it really pays to have a bit of patience and read the cards. So And and another key moment in the third game was Shatterstorm. They had one amulet on the field, and that one amulet remained for most of the game. But I was thinking, okay, I had Bring to Light and I had Scape Shift in hand, so I'm like, okay, I have to get rid of this amulet because it's an important part of their deck. So I used Bring to Light to tutor Shatterstorm, and then the following turn, that's when all the fun stuff that I described happened. And I asked them after the game, I said, hey, that turn when I tutored for Shatterstorm and got rid of your amulet, was that a good play? And they said, yeah, it was. So that was good to know. And that's the type of feedback that I try to ask whenever I can. And I also try and read the person or personality. Some people just aren't very pleasant or approachable or willing to help. So I'll usually get a feel for people when I'm playing against them, and my instincts and just the vast amount of experience that I have in dealing with people will usually tell me whether they're approachable or not. But that's something to keep in mind. It's a really good thing to do, is ask people questions and get feedback. It's helped me tremendously. So yeah, the match ended up going very long. There was people watching and all that kind of thing because we were the last match, and everyone else was finished and they were watching, which was a little nerve-wracking as well. I mean, it's kind of cool to just sit and play when everyone else is playing, but when you've got a crowd of people watching, that's a new experience for me as a newer player. But it's also pretty exciting, especially when you win the game. So ended up at 3-1, and that's the best performance I've had thus far in the Modern League, or in a Modern League. I do play in multiple leagues, but okay, ended up going well. Just a few key points in how I'm getting better with the deck. And I kind of use myself as a platform here. More generally, because the questions that I ask and the things that I do, they apply on a broader level that I hope you can ask yourself. If you're in the same position as me, where you're newer to the game, or you're very, very new, or who knows? I mean, even experienced players can pick things up from newer players. And so I want these types of things to apply on a broader level so people can learn from them. And I'm using my own experience to hopefully relay that to you guys. So how I'm getting better with the deck is how am I getting better with the deck is a great question to ask, because it'll highlight your strengths and reinforce what you're doing. But then you can also contrast it and say, where do I need to improve? So some of the notes that I have on that, this is a deck with multiple lines, a lot of different things that you can do. You can tutor with Bring to Light. You sort of adjust to the different matchups. Whether things with Fatal Push, is it an aggressive deck? Do they have small creatures that they're getting out on the battlefield? I'll need to set up a little differently. What I want to see in my opening hand is black mana. That way I have mana for Fatal Push, and then potentially, on turn 4, be able to play Damnation. And, so you want to see 1 mana in your opening hand, and then a green. Also, that way you can play Sakura Tribe Elder and maybe use it to get another black mana for Damnation. Or if it's not a creature-based deck, board those out, and then, okay, I'm going to play more of a counter game here. So I want to start with blue sources, and then be able to get blue sources, whether it's through Search for Tomorrow or Sakura Tribe Elder. So that's one thing that I'm getting much better at, is being able to look forward and see, okay, what do I need, and then configure my mana accordingly. And especially if they have land destruction or things like that, where 2 sources or 2 different mana sources becomes 1. Okay, what basic do I bring out? When do I fetch? When do I shock? When do I actually sacrifice Sakura Tribe Elder or my ramp in general? Is it a slow matchup? Will I have time to just suspend Search for Tomorrow, and then cast Farseek, and then maybe hard cast another Search for Tomorrow? Or is it a very fast matchup, and those steps are just way too slow? So the mana base is really important. And that also applies to Bring to Light and Scape Shift. You know, if you don't see one of your 2 copies of Scape Shift and you have to use Bring to Light, well, then you have to make sure that you have 4 different colors of mana in your base. So that's something I'm recognizing a lot better now, and I'm able to set up. You know, even if I have Bring to Light and I haven't seen Escape Shift, I might draw it. So I want to make sure that I have at least 2 green sources. So things like that. And something else is knowing where it's weak and which matchups it's weak against. And I've touched on that. You know, fast decks, aggressive decks like Burn or Infect can absolutely wreck me in this matchup. In fact, I've only ever played once. I played against once, and I lost almost just as quickly as that Grishelbrand matchup where I was just blown out completely. It was a different iteration of this deck. I didn't have the Fatal Pushes. I didn't have the Anger of the Gods. So I think this iteration would do better, but still, fast, aggressive matchups are tough. You know, if they're able to destroy a Valakut, you know, if I have a Valakut on the field, if I draw it and I play it, and then they're able to use Fulminator Mage, you know, maybe in a Jund sideboarded matchup, or Field of Ruin, and then, you know, Valakut goes to my graveyard, and then they Surgical Extraction the Valakuts out of my deck. That feels really bad. Or is it Life Gain? Life Gain really hurts. You know, I need to get to 8 lands in order to maybe bring out 2 Valakuts and then 6 mountains to do, that would be, I guess, 1836 damage, right? So it just delays my game, makes it tougher. Things like Leyline of Sanctity, where I can't target my opponent with Valakut. Or, you know, and I mentioned this, I believe, a little earlier, is those 2-for-1s with Bring to Light, you know. Someone who doesn't recognize Bring to Light may counter it, but others who know what it is and what it does might let the Bring to Light resolve, but then counter the Scape Shift. So now I've lost a Bring to Light and a Scape Shift. So I know those are the weaknesses, and obviously that's what the sideboard is for, but you can really only do so much. So it's important to know where you're weak, and that's something that I'm learning more and more. And then something else is adjusting to what is going on in the match. And 2 key examples that I saw last night are, one, leaving fetch lands open. You know, just playing them on your turn and then doing whatever you do, but then pass. And then respond to your opponent with the fetch. And I didn't really do that before. I had no clue you could do that. I think it was a Reed Duke Magic online match, and I just kind of saw where he's like, okay, I'm going to respond to this by fetching, get a basic, and then I'm like, wow, I had no clue you could do that. So now it's reactive, but you're giving the least amount of information you can. So one thing that came up last night was the fetch Fatal Push synergy, where I was able to respond to them casting a spell with sacrificing a fetch land, getting the mana that I required, you know, and then remanding, something like that. And it's so that's one key thing that I learned. Another one is Fatal Push synergy with Sakura Tribe Elder. You know, block with Sakura Tribe Elder, and then before damage, sacrifice it, get the land that you're looking for, play it tapped, but then also cast Fatal Push with Revolt. So kind of some cool interactions that I didn't really know about until recently. And another one, and this is sort of adjusting to a matchup where your opponent maybe doesn't play Shocklands, or not that they don't play Shocklands, but they're pretty conservative with it, or they're not really losing a lot of life. So, you know, I'll try and just attack with Sakura Tribe Elder. You know, get in for that chip damage, because you never know if it might come into play with Valakut and the triggers. If I'm going to get to 7 lands and try and kill my opponent at 8, they have to be at 18. So coming in for 2 damage with the Sakura Tribe Elder is really important. Instead of before, I would kind of just assume that I always had to sacrifice it on their end step, and away we go. But no, it's get in for a bit of chip damage. You can play it slower and then maybe respond to what they're doing, and then again get the chip damage in, and then sack the Sakura Tribe Elder, and hopefully get the land you need to cast and resolve Scapeshift. So those are two that came to mind right away that were pretty key, and I've learned pretty recently. Another one that's still there is learning when to mulligan. And especially with this deck, I mean, it's so important to know when to mulligan, and those cases where you need to hit your sideboard cards. Having against Burn, for instance, I want to mulligan to Red Source of Mana and Madcap Experiment, or having an early Dispel or a Negate, or just the resources that you need early on to win the game. And something that I'm trying to get used to is asking myself, can I win with this hand? And, the first two matches I played, kept subpar hands and lost the first matches, so that's something that's tough. I'm finding tough to really ingrain into my mindset, but it'll come with time. That's quite all right. And I did hint at this a bit earlier, but I've got a note here of understanding when to set up for Bring to Light or Scapeshift. So if you see neither in your hand at the time, it's important to be able to cast either one. So setting yourself up with green mana, but then maybe it's an overgrown tomb because you want that black source, or the steam vents to get the red source. That way, when turn 5 comes, you have 4 different sources of mana that you can tutor for Scapeshift when the time comes. But it's adjusting as well. Maybe you only need 3 sources and you want to tutor for the Anger of the Gods. So it's a more aggressive matchup, or where you want to get rid of creatures. Then you got to know, okay, I need to set up for 3 different sources of mana in order to just cast Anger of the Gods and get rid of some creatures on my opponent's end of the battlefield. So things like that, thinking ahead, that's what I really find intriguing about this deck. And so those are some of the ways that I'm getting better. And making notes like this and all that kind of thing really helps that, and it's something I encourage you to do if you're interested in getting better and just becoming a better Magic player. So just some general notes that I'm just kind of thinking about, overall, but also from last night. Knowing when cards are good and when they aren't. And that seems so obvious. I know it kind of sounds even maybe a little bit stupid, but one thing that I'm finding I'm getting better at is just knowing when cards lose value versus when they're better. Whether it's Remand and you're on the draw, it doesn't feel quite as great when you're on the draw, because it feels like it's just you want to be ahead in tempo. You want to have that 2 mana, and then when they're behind on mana, cast it and just keep them behind. Whereas if you're on the draw, maybe Remand isn't so good, and so things like that. Even just more basic thoughts like, creature-based matchups. Do I keep the Damnation, or is maybe Anger of the Gods good enough? Or so things like that. Just knowing the value of cards and when they apply, and even something that's normally a mainstay, I'm starting to learn. Maybe I just shave one. Maybe I shave one Fatal Push and then bring in another Anger of the Gods, because Fatal Push isn't quite as good as Anger of the Gods. So questions that I'm asking myself, and still part of it is knowing what the cards do out there. I mean, I'm still a long way from knowing all the decks, all the matchups, and whether I ever will is a doubt, but the value of cards, especially with sideboarding, something that I'm really putting a lot of focus into and want to get better with. If you'll notice here, there is a mission briefing, which is a new card from Guilds of Ravnica. and I'm testing it in place of Snapcaster Mage. And it came as a suggestion from a friend of mine that I play with at the local store to test. And the reason he mentioned is because it's not vulnerable to graveyard hate like Snapcaster Mage is. There's really no opportunity for interaction. Kind of surveil 2, then choose an instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. You may cast that card, as opposed to giving it flashback, and then they have the opportunity to just with Scavenging Ooze to just exile it and interact with it. So don't have a ton of experience or feedback with it yet. The only time I used it yesterday was to cast Crumble to Dust. I do like the Surveil. When I did cast it, the one time, it only happened in one match, the Surveil actually won me the game. It was crucial that I had surveilled there, because it was two cards that I had to kind of rearrange and ended up being extremely valuable. So I do like the Surveil, and we'll see. I'm going to keep it in there, whether Snapcaster's better. It is a body that you can flash in and potentially block, or, I was talking about chip damage earlier. Maybe the Snapcaster Mage gets your opponent down to 18, and you're able to resolve Scapeshift at 7 lands and win that way. So we'll see. I think I'll keep playing with the mission briefing to see how it works out, but weigh in. Let me know what you think. If you've played with both and you think the Snap's better, tell me why. And that applies to any of this. I mean, the goal here is not to be right all the time. It's not meant to be perfect. It's to kind of just talk about the questions that I'm asking myself, the experiences that I'm going through, and just trying to be a better player overall, and then hoping that translates to the viewers and it helps them in some way. That's my goal here. So another consideration is Assassin's Trophy, maybe a 2 of in this deck. I'm thinking about that. It could work against Planeswalkers, or even Leyline of Sanctity, things like that I have a tough time dealing with. I'm considering bringing in Assassin's Trophy. I do have the black mana, and it could be very useful. So that's a thought. I haven't given it too much thought, but it's a consideration. Chip damage, I talked about. And this is something, luckily I did this from the start, and it's extremely important to be able to resolve Scapeshift. If you're new to the deck, and that may sound obvious, but just last night, and it happens all the time, if they see that I cast Scapeshift and they can't do anything about it, some people will just scoop and move on, whereas others will want to see me resolve it, just in case I make a mistake. And I think that's well within their rights. So, I mean, I still do this sometimes, where I would just sort of play out a match and get to Scapeshift, cast it, and then just spend time resolving it over and over. Counting how many mountains do I have here? How many are in the deck? Okay, so how many mountains does that leave? If I bring out, say, 7 mountains and 1 Valakut, okay, I've sacked 8 lands. How much damage is that going to be? And then just resolving it over and over again, because last thing you want to do, of course, is try and resolve it and then make a mistake where you don't do enough damage, or and then you just leave yourself with a bunch of mountains and you can't really do anything from there. So resolve it multiple times. Get to know the deck, because some people will watch you and make you resolve it in order to actually win the game, and I think that's well within their right. Whereas others will just know that you have it and they'll scoop. Another thing that I came across, and this was interesting, this happened in the Eldrazi Tron matchup, was my opponent could have ghost quartered his own Urza's tower, preventing me from having a target for Crumble to Dust. So this is something that he realized too late, but I just thought I would note it, because that's good to know. Exile target non-basic lands. So I targeted the Urza's Tower. They had a Ghost Quarter out and could have responded by Ghost Quartering their Urza's Tower. And then I wouldn't have had a target. And that would have been that. My Crumble to Dust would have crumbled to dust. So just something there, it's good to know. And then where does the deck go from here? So I hinted at previously that I've gone through a handful of iterations of this deck. Ones with Izzet Charm, ones without Search for Escanta. Of course, there's Snapcaster Mage, ones that don't play any Jace at all. I think I like this one the best so far. Another had no Anger of the Gods, and another had Abrupt Decay. And the sideboard is a bit different and can change with the meta, of course. But where do I go from here? I mean, Search for Escanta, it's an excellent card. It hasn't felt great for me in this deck. I think back to all the matches that I've had, and it's not that many. I've definitely played this deck the most. But Search, I either haven't drawn it or, I play it and, okay, it's great, but I don't know. It just hasn't felt that impactful, especially with essentially 6 scape shifts. Finding those generally haven't been a problem. The Tribe Elders I want to play on turn 2. Farseek I want to play on turn 2. Or, I want to be able to kind of play Fatal Pushes and that kind of thing depending on the matchup. But maybe I have one or both in the sideboard against Control. You can also kind of do the thing where you're at 6 lands and you have a Search for Escanta out, and then if you're able to transform it, all of a sudden you have 7 lands, and then maybe you can Scape Shift and win that way. Feels like that's a rare occurrence. That hasn't happened to me yet. Being able to get land generally doesn't seem to be an issue. So I don't know what I'm going to do with Escanta. I mean, let me know what you think, if it should be in there. I had another iteration where there was one in the main deck and then one in the sideboard. But Worldly Council, this card, is one I'm thinking of. Well, I have 2 copies, and I'm thinking of replacing the Search for Escantas with the Worldly Councils. And Worldly Council, I'll bring it up here. Oops, it's not that. It's SEL. So look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Put one of those cards into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. So really good in this deck because there's 4 different types of land, and pretty early on you're able to establish at least 3 different land types. So I think you don't really want to go below 3. I'm just going to take a sip here. Just because, I don't know. I don't know the name of the card. But then I guess you just try, you'd play another draw engine type card. But I don't know that you'd want to go below 3. And you can easily set that up. And at the same time, it's something you can cast on their end step and then get a key card. So I think I'm going to try that. I think it's a pretty good option. I've had it in the deck previously, 2 copies, and it seemed pretty nice. So I think I'll go with that moving forward. The land base seems pretty good. I have 11 mountains in this one. I've played a version of this deck that had 10. But that extra mountain just feels incredibly valuable. And it was a stomping ground. So previously it was 3 stomping ground. But now there are 4. And having that extra just becomes, or has just been so key. Last thing you want is to draw too many mountains. Then you can't resolve escape shift properly. And with that extra, I mean, even if you draw or you have sort of 4 lands, 5 mountains on the battlefield, you can still go for 6 and still win that way. And so that 1 extra mountain has been excellent, and I don't think I want to go below that. Outside of that, I think it'll just kind of change with the meta, you know, the meta that I play with locally. And then who knows if I do end up going to any events or anything like that in the future, probably look at the broader meta and see what the kind of the pros are doing and that kind of thing, because, you know, people tend to look at what they are doing. So that could be valuable. But I think that's it. I don't know about the enchantment hate. Don't really come across it too much, other than maybe I know there's a Boggles player. So we'll see. Jund, I think, is going to be a thing again. So I have 1 Obstinate Baloth. Perhaps a second goes in the sideboard. But I guess we'll see. We will see. So that's it for that. I mean, hopefully that was useful. It's definitely useful for me to do that. I love looking back and theory crafting and understanding what my mistakes were. And actually, speaking of mistakes, oh no, I already talked about it. No, I talked about the spell snare thing. Yeah, so that's all good. And I'll resume my shuffling of said deck, and then we'll get to Arena. So, Arena, still on the Izzet Spells deck. It's good. I like Arena because it gives me my fill of Standard, and then I'm able to play Modern on tabletop, and I'm almost I've almost completed a Standard deck on paper as well. So I'm sure I'll be getting some games in with that in the near future. But sticking with this Izzet Spells deck, don't know how good it's going to be as the meta shapes online here. I know probably a lot of Golgari mid-range and that kind of thing. We're almost at the ideal land base. I need 1 more Sulphur Falls so I can get rid of this Highland Lake. And 1 more Sarkhan would be nice. Then I could probably do like an Izzet Drake's deck, where maybe instead of the Crackling Drake, I do Demanding Dragon. Don't think I have any of those. Okay, I have 1. So I probably need 3 in the deck. But anywho, we will do some competitive play. If your opening hand doesn't contain any early plays, consider taking a mulligan. Yeah. Yeah, a lesson that I need to learn. Well, not that one. I feel it goes deeper. It's that question, can I win if I have this deck? So I'm on the play, 4 lands, a Sinister Sabotage, and then just 2 Niv Mizzets. So, I mean, this isn't really that great. I mean, if it's a slow matchup, I'm going to mulligan, I think. Or do I? I mean, I have both color. I have a counterplay or counterspell. Maybe I'll mulligan. Okay, I think this is better. So my opponent hasn't decided either. Tapped land, I mean, whatever. That's fine. I'll have 2 sources of mana, potentially for an Essence Scatter. If I'll scry here. If I see a land, I'm going to leave it on top. And then I have a potential Sarkhan too. So this isn't actually too bad. All right, so... Okay, so my opponent's decided to mulligan as well. I'm going to keep. And they've mulliganed to 5. I know this feeling. And it doesn't seem like they like this hand. They've mulliganed to 4. Oh. Oh boy. The good old mulligan to 3. This I've never seen. A mulligan to 2. Okay, I think they're maybe just having some fun here now. And they've mulliganed to nothing. Oh, then they've conceded. Interesting. What a way to start. Let's go to game 2. So we got no information from our opponent on what they're playing. I mean, so at this point, what do I even do? How do you make a decision when you have no information? Serbong, Bear Song. So I'm on the draw. This isn't. With the steam vents, and they've mulliganed again. I mean, if I hit my lands here, it's real nice. So do I do it? I think I'll keep. And here go my... Okay, so maybe they're just doing this on purpose, where they're mulliganing over and over again. Or it could be a deck that absolutely needs an opening hand, a certain opening hand, and then they just win. I don't know what that would be, if that exists, but... Okay, so we do hit a land. That's great. I think I'll do the mountain. That way I don't give away blue. Okay, we'll pass. I mean, I suppose I could have played the steam vents tapped. So black, white. So I feel like they're going to have some creatures here, so maybe electrostatic field isn't too bad. So let's just cast it. I don't really know what to expect. Niv Izzet for days. So I'll pay 2 life, and that is all. So I'm representing that I have a Sinister Sabotage. A land drop would be great. Three in the deck, the Niv Izzets, but I always seem to have 2 in my, first 4 draws. Okay, so they've passed priority and combat. My turn. Do I maybe shock? Sure. Okay, so no land. And I'll pass the turn. So they'll be at 4 mana. Knight of Grace. Do I want to counter that? No, I'll let that resolve. Okay, main phase opt. Essence Scatter. I mean, that probably wouldn't be bad. I mean, I want land, but I think Essence Scatter is kind of nice here. I think Essence Scatter is nice here. So they're not playing land. Okay, there it is. Okay, that I'm gonna Essence Scatter. We still got the field for protection. Alright, Sulphur Falls, that's good. They are tapped out. Crackling Drake will be a 3/4, which is pretty decent. 3/4 flyer. Pressure would be nice, but I have a feeling they have... if they have Conclave Tribunal, they have it. So, but if they have 5 lands, what do they play at 5? I don't know. Do I play this now? Okay, there's land. There is land. And this electrostatic field hasn't been too bad. It's just nice chip damage. And it goes along nicely with if you're able to resolve Niv Mizzet, get that chip damage. You end up doing a lot of work. So I'm not sure if this is some sort of just Knights deck and maybe they can't find a third white source. Or not a third, they don't need 3 white sources for History of Benalia. Okay, speak of the devil. Alright, so we hit the Steam Vents, that's good. We'll have Niv Mizzet. I'll play that. And then I think I Lava Coil the Knight of Grace. I have mana open for Sinister Sabotage. And then... do I attack? I think I attack with the Drake. Next turn, another Knight will come out. And I can block the one with the field. We will block. And maybe they have a dead weight or a hexproof from white. Do I really care about this guy? Niv Mizzet's coming down. I'm gonna let it resolve. Okay, see, I think that was a good move. Sarkhan, okay. Pay 2 life, that gives me 6 mana. Yeah, it still won't allow me to... No, that won't be enough. So I'll cast Niv Mizzet. Actually, they're gonna get +2/+1. So I have 16. I think I'm okay to attack with the Crackling Drake. We do blue mana first, and then I mean, if he can't, I can take the what is that? That's 8, 5, 9. That's 13 damage. That's a lot. So if they can't deal with the Niv Mizzet or the Crackling Drake, really, I just win. Okay. Alright, so I think I just block him, and I'll be taking 8. It's fine. And they have conceded. Alright. Well, you know, not much you can say about that match. I've never, well, actually, there is something you can say about that. Now I can say that I've seen an opponent mulligan to no cards. Awesome. Strength in numbers. We have a new deck. Let's see if we got any cool cards. Instigator, kind of a good limited card, but that's a good card. Siege Gang Commander, very nice. That is a good card. Unfortunately, only one. Got a Clifftop Retreat and Forest Stone Quarry. All right, so nothing special there. Militia Bugler, that's cool. All right, let's go to another game. Is it spells? It is. All right, gonna put this deck away. No wonder I go through so many sleeves. I just shuffle like crazy. All right. Interesting. I'm on the draw, a couple opts. I mean, I like the mana base. The opts can get me to perhaps what I need, so I think maybe I keep. My opponent's mulligan. Mulligan to 6, Kali Yuga Surfer. And we've got a blue. So we have to pay 2, which is fine. So that pretty much tells them that we want to be able to use this mana. And they now know that we are Izzet. So maybe this isn't a mono blue. Yeah, it looks like it's a mono blue. So I'll respond with an opt. We will bottom that. Okay, that's all right. That's not great. This is Surveil, right? Yeah, Surveil 1. I'm hoping for my shocks. Shocks, Lava Coil. So sideboard, we bring in the Cannonades. I mean, our electrostatic fields work. Well, no, they're not great against the flyer. Okay, we'll go to damage. Oh no, I forgot to opt. That's too bad. Okay, we'll play that. That's really unfortunate. Okay, and the turn, I mean, they actually didn't play anything. So that tells me that they had no 3-mana spells. Perhaps they aren't getting land. But yeah, that's interesting. They surveilled. Maybe they don't need really more than 3? I don't know what's going on here with this deck, but you'd think that surveil would give them something. So they bin to land. Okay, so they don't want land. So I think Tempest Djinn is maybe something they're going to be looking for. And I probably want, yeah, there it is. I think I will Sinister Sabotage you. Land, no thanks. Or maybe, no, I don't think so. And it's my turn. And we draw land anyway. Okay. So we'll be at 4. I mean, I don't want to take the 2, but Chemist's Insight could be pretty useful here. So we'll pay 2 life, and I can maybe Disdainful Stroke, or Opt, or even Chemist's Insight. I don't like taking the damage. But, so when they binned that island, I guess they just had the land in their hand that they needed. It's not that they didn't want the land. I mean, hopefully we can make use of our Disdainful Stroke. Maybe Zahid. I think it's Zahid, the genie. But they might board in some counter magic on their end too, right? I'm Curious Obsession is... okay. So, let's see. So my shocks would be great here. Wow, okay. So we get another Sinister Sabotage, but we've got to deal with what's in front of us. Can play the island. Next turn we can get Niv-Mizzet. I mean, if I can stabilize and then be able to ping their creatures, that would be awesome. Do I maybe main phase Opt? That'll leave up 4 mana. I think so. Sarkhan, I just don't think I got time for you, homie. More land. Okay. I'm surprised we haven't seen a Curious Obsession. I don't remember how much, or the CMC for Zahid. If that card's even in the deck, I don't know. I think we'll be okay. Okay, damage. Alright, so I think I Chemist's Insight here. And discard the Highland Lake. And if they, okay, I was gonna say, if they have a counter and they use it, okay, a shock, that's pretty good. Electrostatic field, that's pretty good here too. So we do have 3 and 3. We can play that. Get Izzet out. Can't be countered. I don't know if they'll have any way to deal with it. I'm not sure at all. We're at 11. We have a shock. We have the electrostatic field. I think we're in pretty good shape. Can't be countered. Which my opponent just learned the hard way. Okay. So maybe they have a bounce spell of some sort. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think this turn what we can do is shock. I mean, or do we just want to get Izzet out again? I'm at, what, 4? This will make 7 mana. Do I maybe get Sarkhan out? That can't be blocked. I do need to stabilize somewhat here, so I think I want to get this out. Maybe they, okay, they don't have another Essence Scatter. We can shock. Okay, they're looking at their hand. I mean, do I want to counter that? I mean, obviously it's very important to them. Whoop. Target that. Do they have another dive down? Oh, okay. Maybe I opt. Land, no thanks. Okay, that's good. Think I'm still okay. That can't, okay, there it is. They don't know I have another shock. I mean, that's a pretty good draw for them. We'll see. Can I stabilize here? Okay, we have a shock. We have a lava coil. What does this do? Okay, I'm at 6. That'll leave me at 4. That can't be blocked. So I want to get rid of the flyer. I can play this tapped. I think I want to leave Disdainful Stroke. I don't know if Disdainful Stroke's really good here. I'm at 6. Yep. I mean, I have to get rid of this Herald because it can't get blocked, so... So I can play Sarkhan and then cast Niv Mizzet. And then maybe draw... Well, no, I'd be adding the mana. Okay, well, let's get the big man out. Can I do it? I think they've used 2 dive downs. I don't feel like this should be that hard of a matchup. Post board. But then again, I don't know what they bring in either, right? They're at 7 mana. Or ability that targets you or a creature you control. Okay. So I guess I just do it. They're gonna sacrifice it. Or okay, maybe not. Ba. Well, they're thinking.
Let us fight.
I mean, that can't be blocked. I'm at 2.
I don't need this. I need this.
Can I do 1 more damage? It all depends here. If I draw a shock, or if they do that, I really don't. I really don't mind that. Okay. Do Do I attack? So I don't know. I mean, I wasn't expecting them to... I'll do that just in case they have... they have something that I could... Oh, okay. Alright, that's a good game. So I guess they knew that doing that would kill the... Alright, so the shocks are good. That's good. Disdainful Stroke's not good. Direct Current's good. Sarkhan... I mean, Fiery Cannonade's really nice. I think I'm just going to take Sarkhan out altogether. 1, 2... Probably shave a Niv Mizzet. 3... it's important to counter the dive downs. So I'll be on the play. Direct currents are good. Lava coils aren't that great. Like, they're good because they're removal, but at the same time, the 4 damage isn't... Like, I don't know that they'll have that many, like, heavy toughness creatures. Disdainful Stroke just doesn't seem great. Electrostatic Field, I mean... I guess the idea is, like, Mistcloak Herald and unblockable creatures. Zahid is a consideration. Probably shave one of those. Shave one of those. Whoops. Throw in a Fight with Fire. Woo! That was close. Don't want to make the same mistake I've done in the past. So we want to see some Essence Scatters. Or, okay, counter's nice. We do have some removal. Not some, just the one. Like Fiery Cannonade would be great. Like, I think I mulligan here. Okay, that's not too bad. Just some early removal. Fight with Fire? I don't think so. Play the tap land now. Okay, get rid of that. And of course we draw Niv Mizzet. I bring it down to 2. We still draw it. Okay, it targets you or a creature you control. I mean, I feel like it's probably good to get rid of this now, but... Feels bad. I think he can just sacrifice it, but I think it's getting rid of it. Or if they have a dive down, that could be interesting as well. Oh, okay. I'm not too worried about that. Honestly. At least I don't think so. Getting it out of the way early, right? Yeah, he has the mana open. So I've got to wait till they tap out, essentially. Okay, we'll play that tapped and pass the turn. So no, well, what's it called? Not Zahid, the other one. Tempest Djinn. But we do have an Essence Scatter. Okay, they're drawing lots of cards. I mean, we can try and take out the Night Veil Sprite. And then we can maybe copy, no land. Yep. So they're expecting me to have this, I imagine. And then I can expansion. Okay. Okay, so there's the 6th land. They have 1 mana open. They have dive down. They have, you know, whatever. I imagine they have to have exclusion mage at this time. Okay, well, let's make them have it, I guess, you know. You know, maybe they don't. I don't see it being more than maybe a 2 of. But they've drawn a fair amount of cards, so... Okay, if I lava coil and they dive down... Or do I maybe play the Crackling Drake? I think we do that. Well, I can do 1 damage to the Night Veil Sprite, cast Lava Coil on the Tempest Djinn, and then if they play Dive Down, I'll at least maybe trade for the... I'll at least maybe get rid of the Night Veil Sprite. So they've got to lose 1. Okay, that's fine. Do that. I don't think do I attack? We're at 13. They'll have maybe a 5. Oh, why did I... Oh, that was stupid. Like I shouldn't have... See, that was dumb. I shouldn't have... I shouldn't have attacked. That was dumb. I mean, we've got a pretty decent hand. Essence Scat, I'm tapped out now, but I think we can work with this. I think they're gonna attack with the Djinn. Question is, do I block with the Crackling Drake? But if he does, I can get in for a lot of damage. So, I mean, if they want to use a dive, okay. All right, let's see. I'll do 5. Would he want to trade with the Crackling Drake? Expansion. I mean, I'm only at 6 mana, so... Okay, they're at 14. All right, I think I end. I'm in decent shape. We've got a counter, we got a Sabotage and an Essence Scatter. Okay, my turn. So we can attack for 10 and then potentially just direct current. Oh, can we direct current twice? I think we can. Okay. If he counters this, that could potentially be problematic, I guess. But I think I'll just kill him off the triggers. Because if he casts another instant, then I just win. Yeah, okay. So maybe the cannonades aren't so great. I mean, they're... it's okay, I think, but once... maybe I'll shave one. Ral could be pretty good. I think another fight with fire. I mean, does dive down... would it be good on my end? Like, Exclusion Mage was annoying. And the dive down would prevent my opponent from Exclusion Maging Niv Mizzet, but I'm casting it on turn 6. I wouldn't have mana open anyway. Expansion Explosion. I think I'll shave one and put in a Banefire. Crackling Drake. Do I maybe shave one and put Rahl in? Let's do that. So it could be useful for his minus ability, but it's also just card advantage too, potentially, so. Okay. That's actually not too bad. I'm on the draw, so if I get another red source, that would be great. But I think this is pretty good. Some early removal, we have a counter spell. And there's Niv Mizzet, of course. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, so there is another land. We will pass the turn and then potentially shock. We have a negate, but I don't know that that's going to help us too much. Three mana and they haven't done anything. Interesting. Okay. We will pass. I mean, I don't really mind this. 4 mana. They're gonna maybe play 2 small? No, they would have played a creature. Yeah, okay. So we can lava coil. No, we can't. Oh, we do have a steam vents, okay. And then if they dive down, we can negate it. Pay 2. Okay, that's pretty good. Shields are down though. I doubt they would have used the dive down if they had another Tempest Djinn. Okay, so they have to discard, and they've discarded an island. Okay, so they have a land, or had a land heavy hand. We can main phase opt. I think it'd be nice to get a land. Electrostatic field, meh. Okay, that's pretty good. Can do that and then pass. So if we draw land, we get Niv Mizzet next turn. An untapped land. But we've only got one Izzet. No, we have 3 Izzet Guild Gates. We have an Essence Scatter. Let's see if we can get away with it. Okay, no, they don't cast anything. Did not get a land. So we are at 5. Oh, that's kind of... Well, we'll leave it. And then potentially cast Chemister's Insight on their end step. I like the Essence Scatter, but I'm not sure what they're drawing, if anything. Let's see if we can get away with this. 4. They may counter it. 2 lands, okay. Okay, so we're at 6 lands. If we play this and then they have an Exclusion Mage, they just have the Exclusion Mage, I guess. Let's play it. I mean, it can't be countered, so hopefully we get some value out of it. But we'll see. They maybe have an end step blink of an eye. But then if they do cast that, I do draw a card. So they have something, obviously. They're on my end step. Okay. Till end of turn. I mean, he should have done that on his upkeep. I think. Because Niv Mizzet still has, unless, I mean, he's casting all creature spells, so wouldn't matter, I suppose. Dwindle, interesting. Okay. Okay, we'll get, we'll target that. So let's see, maybe we just shock. Or do I'm thinking maybe do I target the trickster and then do the 1 damage? To the trickster. And don't even mind me, I'm just thinking out loud here. Okay, I can lava coil. Like, they have 2 cards, maybe they just don't have dive down. If they do, I just don't know if this is going to resolve. That's the problem. Okay, no, so it resolves. Okay, combat, attack. Do that. I can do that. What do I discard though? 2 essence scatters. I think I maybe want to end step Chemist's Insight. Discard. Maybe Fiery Cannonade. Okay, that's good. The electrostatic field's a nice alternate win condition. That was all on end step too. Play that. Okay, and Banefire is a consideration as well. I'm at 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. Play that. So that, yeah, what was that? 4, 8, 10. I mean, I can also kick Fight with Fire. Okay, combat, that's 4, 6, 7, yeah, so can't quite Banefire. No attackers, and I wonder, like, does my opponent just have a handful of land? Oh boy. Alright. So now I have 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. So GG. Okay. So we got there. Not too bad. Not too bad. That was probably a little painful for my opponent. We got some gold. We got a pack. We're in good shape. Ritual of Soot. All right. Good card. I will take it. All right. So we can get a pack. I'm looking for Sulphur Falls. I guess we can do Dominaria. Maybe we'll get it. Tashar. All right, well, a little underwhelming. Okay, that was good. That was pretty good. Well, I think that's it for now. I guess while I'm here, talked about this before. Spinoza, book called Ethics. Pretty intense. This is the book, well, one of the books that I'm reading right now. Pretty deep. I'm probably about 3 1/4 way through the Brothers Karamazov. Actually, a little more than that now. So that's coming to a close. Really, really cool book. Just like so many deep questions and different personalities in that book that are something to behold, and it really is a masterwork from Dostoevsky. Looking forward to coming to the end of that book, because I hear there's a pretty rad, and yes, I just said rad, pretty epic, amazing speech by Alexei or Alyosha. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then, yes, of course, Ethics by Spinoza. Baruch Spinoza. Look them up. But where I'm going with this, read books. They're awesome. Write daily. Both of those things daily if you can. I always kind of said, if you don't like reading, you just haven't found the right reading material. So I think the important thing is to just look for it. What else? That's all I got for now. Had some great Magic games. Learned a ton from last night's Modern League. Hopefully you get something out of this video as well. But I think this is definitely worthy of a Journey of an MT, or not N, Journey of a Magic the Gathering beginner episode. I'll have to check on what episode it is. I think it's 5 or 6, but that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching. Follow me at Elevateyourcraft. All one word. That's the handle for YouTube, for Facebook, EYCKAS on Instagram, and EYCKAS on Twitter. And check out the other content. Just released a vlog for calisthenics not too long ago, just on some updates, and a lot of change is happening in that area of my life, which is pretty exciting, but also somewhat daunting too. So that's on YouTube. So check that out when you get some time. Otherwise, that's it for me. Look forward to making the next video, and I'll see you guys later.